Hi guys, welcome to another live session coming to you from Aussie's Melbourne. My name is Jorge Gamba and I'll be discussing today some skills assessments and some of the best fields to study to get permanent residence in 2019. Now, some of you know today there will be some offers releasing from the government for the point system. As soon as we have more details on the offers and the invitations, we'll be releasing this to you very shortly. But touching on the subject that is very commonly asked of me during consultations is, what should I study to get permanent residence? It is a difficult question to answer because everybody's different. I might recommend a course to someone, but they have no interest in it, and it's tricky because it's your life. You will be spending time at school preparing yourself for a career. And if you not necessarily like that career, if you don't plan to practice in that field, then you're going to be stuck with a degree that it's going to be useless. And worst of all, what happens if that occupation that you trained on just because you wanted to get PR, what happens if that comes off the list? Then you'll be stuck, right? So I wanted to touch on some of the best fields to study to get permanent residence in 2019. And also touch on the skills assessment, which goes hand in hand with the course you study, because at the end of the day, to get permanent residence, you need to get a skills assessment. And the various different bodies that assess the different occupations have very different requirements. So knowing exactly what to study to get a skills assessment down the track can be a little bit tricky, but if you do some preparation, then you can eventually get there. So I'll just go back to the very end and discuss. So what you need to get permanent residence in Australia, you need one of 5 things. You need to either have an occupation that is on the list, on the medium to long-term list, okay? Or if it's on the short-term list that a state is sponsoring it. For example, the occupation of marketing specialist. It's not on the long-term list, but it is on the short-term list, and the states of South Australia and Tasmania sponsor this occupation. Right? So you need either points in an occupation that is on one of the lists. That's through the skilled independent pathway or the state-sponsored pathway. An alternative, if you don't have points in an occupation on that list, you maybe have an employer that is willing to sponsor you. And you gotta have at least 3 years to be able to be nominated for PR. Or if you have 2 years, you can be nominated for a work visa. Or if I have 1 year of experience, you can be nominated for a training visa. Now, outside of the point system or an employer, you would need either a family member, like a partner, either an Australian partner or perhaps a New Zealander, and you can go on a 461 New Zealand family relationship visa. Or if your partner, your husband, your wife, your de facto partner, if they have access to PR, then you can be a dependent on their visa and ride along towards PR on their visa, on their application. Apart from that, you would need to be either a refugee or someone on a protection visa, or outside of that, you would need investment. So invest in an asset in Australia to the value of $1.5 million over, and then potentially you can get PR that way. And there's various streams on the business visas. And through all of these options at Aussie's Melbourne, we can help you with. So I'm going to be discussing skills assessment and fields of study to get PR. Feel free to share this with anybody you feel may benefit from this information. Leave a comment below if you've got any questions, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as the live is finished or in the next 24 hours. So let's say someone comes to me and asks, what should I study to get PR? Well, my first question to them back would be, what are you interested in studying? Because if I send you to do a trade course, you might not really like it, you might do really bad at it, you might not even be able to graduate, and you would fail, and you won't be able to get a skills assessment to go for PR. But some of the things that are most in demand right now in Australia, some of the things like in science, in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, math, nursing, occupations in IT, so more of the back end as opposed to the front end. So Web developers, web designers, software testers, they're on the short-term list, but occupations like developer programmer, software engineer, computer network systems engineer, systems analysis, ICT business analyst, ICT security specialist, which is the cybersecurity specialists, they have access to PR directly. So there were people who studied an ICT qualification, but they focus on the programming, the back end, as opposed to the front end, as opposed to the UX design aspect of ICT. So for a lot of nurses who have qualified from overseas, let's say from India or from Philippines, they would be asked in Australia to complete a bridging program, which was called in previous times the IRON program, and which would last about 3 months. And then they could get registered with APRA, which is the authority that regulates nurses here. And that registration is the same as the skills assessment, and with that registration at hand, you can work as a nurse, right? So that now is no longer the case. The IRON program for the 2019 intake is completely full. There's actually no spots left, and most of our clients, what they're doing is they're taking admission in a Bachelor of Nursing conversion at universities like Deakin University, where you can do a 1-year bachelor's conversion program, and then after you finish that bachelor's qualification, you can apply to APRA to get registered as a nurse and practice as a nurse, and eventually go on to get your skills assessment with UNMAC, and then apply for PR through the point system. So if someone comes to me and says, I want to study basically anything to get PR, well, it's tricky, but some of the recommendations I would make would be nursing. Now, if that person already has a bachelor's, let's say in commerce or in arts, or in other fields like IT, then if they don't have enough points yet, they can do a 1-year teaching course, let's say a graduate diploma in early childhood, which some of our clients are doing at RMIT, which is a 1-year program. And after that course, as long as you've done 45 days placement in a setting in early childhood, then you can apply for a skills assessment with the Australian the Teachers Association, which is AITSL. AITSL will ask you to complete a 4-year qualification. So if you already have a bachelor's, you would have a 3-year bachelor's at least, plus the 1 year in a graduate diploma. And then with those 4 years, you would complete your registration, your skills assessment as a teacher, as long as you've done 45 days placement in a setting in early childhood, and as long as you have academic IELTS. So AITSL doesn't accept PTE, they only accept the academic IELTS, and it'll be quite a high standard. It'll be quite a high IELTS, IELTS 8 on the speaking and the writing, and then 7 on the reading and the listening. So if someone is prepared to undergo a 1-year course in teaching, if they already have a bachelor's, that is one of the ways they can quickly get to a skills assessment and apply as a teacher. For now, the only occupations in teaching that are on the long-term list are secondary school teacher and early childhood, pre-primary school teacher. Primary school teacher is on the short-term list, which means that you can only go for the point system if you're a primary school teacher. If in Victoria, let's say for example, if you have 2 years experience as a language teacher. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. It prolongs the time that you would take to get to the skills assessment and then to get to PR. So the main options for teachers are secondary school teacher, or early childhood teacher, or special needs teacher. And the requirements is the same. Complete a 4-year qualification. If you have a 3-year bachelor's from back home, you can complete a 1-year course in Australia, like a graduate diploma. And then with that, you can apply for a skills assessment, right? Another area of study that is very popular, that is usually always on demand and is actually quite highly paid in Australia, are trades. So carpenters, painters, welders, paddle beaters, locksmiths, you name it, chefs. They would mostly go via the following route. They would complete certificate 3, so certificate 3 in painting, for example. There wouldn't be a certificate 4. If they're a chef, if they want to go as a chef, they would complete a certificate 3 and 4 in commercial cookery, and then they will do a diploma. Now, for people who do trades in construction, they would need to do a diploma of building and construction building, not management, because that way, with the diploma of construction building in building, they can access a graduate visa, 45 visa, on the graduate stream, right, which lasts you for 18 months. And in those 18 months, you would do the job ready program with TRA, which we help our clients do, which would involve going into a workplace for 12 months, completing these 12 months of Australian experience, and then getting a full skills assessment. So areas, like I said, trades in carpentry, in painting, welding, in automotive, those are very popular areas to study if if you don't mind studying these areas, and if you're interested in these. Even sometimes if you already have a qualification for back home, let's say you have a bachelor's in business, then you might transition into a trade, and that will allow you to get PR down the future. Now, no agent can guarantee PR, and no agent can tell you that this course is going to get you PR. The course will simply allow you to get a skills assessment and potentially allow you to get PR based on your points, based on your English, based on the fact that you may complete a NADI exam, translator's exam, and also based on the fact that you can potentially get sponsored down the line and accumulate experience, and then add that experience to your points, and then take those points to immigration and say, I have this many points, invite me. So apart from nursing, apart from teaching, apart from trades, qualifications in science, like in biology, biochemistry, biotechnology, marine sciences, all those qualifications are good in terms of PR. All those occupations are on the PR list now. So if you complete a bachelor's of, let's say, of biology, then if you complete it in Australia, as long as it is a 2-year bachelor's, you can go on to a post-study workstream graduate visa, which is for another 2 years. So you got 3 years for your bachelor's, 2 years during your graduate visa. In those 2 years during your graduate visa, you need to accumulate 12 months experience, so that the vet assess, which is the body that will assess the biochemists, the biotechnologists, the marine scientists, all of those disciplines will be assessed by vet assess, and vet assess will ask you to have 12 months experience in the last 5 years. So even if you completed a qualification from back home and you're here, let's say on a working holiday visa, or you're here studying, you could complete those 12 months while you're here, and then go for a skills assessment. Those occupations are also usually on high demand. They usually stay on the lists. They don't usually come on and off. They're pretty safe bets. If you were thinking of studying something like that and then applying for PR, you would need to be conscious that after you graduate, you need to get 12 months experience at least, in order for you to get the skills assessment that would allow you to apply for PR. Because the skills assessment is your presentation card. Everybody that wants to go through the point system needs to get a skills assessment. And regardless of whether you completed your qualification from back home or in Australia, you need to get a skills assessment. Everybody has to. Now, apart from the science, another area that is quite popular, that Australia does very well of, and that many people from all over the world come to study here, is accounting. Now, accounting is a good course in the sense that it is an occupation that is on demand, but it is highly competitive. The points for accountants at the moment are 90 points. You need 90 points to have a realistic chance of being invited through the point system. Now, I'll say a couple of things about the point system. The point system in Australia is allocated within the 160,000 places for new migrants we have every year in Australia. So in those 160,000 places, we have the refugee intake, the parents, the partners, the children, the employer-sponsored visas for PR, and then the point system. And then in the point system, we have about 35,000, 40,000 places. And about 22,000 of them are taken up by the 189 visa. And then the rest, all the states and territories will take up the rest. They will invite applicants on the short-term list and others on the long-term list. Now, accountants usually can get also a skills assessment as an external auditor, as long as you've studied the foundational subjects. So for external auditor, you would have had to study auditing and assurance during your qualification, so you can get a skills assessment as an external auditor. Now, accountants is a very popular course. It's a course that we still recommend people that if you're interested in it, that you study and that you do well at. But bear in mind that accounting is quite a competitive course, and then getting a permanent residence visa as an accountant on a 189 can be a little bit tricky. You can get a skills assessment right after you finish your qualification. That's not a problem. The skills assessment is not the issue. The issue is that there are many applicants and there are very few spots for accountants, and they usually get pretty close to filling the yearly quotas for accountants through the point system. Now, for external auditors, you usually need 5 points less than accountants. So if accountants need 90 points on the points visa, then you would need 85 points if you can get a skills assessment as an external auditor. And you can do both applications and just grab whichever comes first. Now, apart from accounting, another field that is very, very, very popular is ICT technologies. Now, I've spoken a little bit about this before, but I'll just delve into the skills assessment process. So there are a few occupations on the long-term list in relation to ICT. So your software developers, programmers, engineers, ICT business analysts, systems analysts, cybersecurity, computer network systems engineers. Now, usually the ICT business analysts and systems analysts require a little bit of higher points than the rest. ICT business analysts usually require 85 points at the moment. My expectation is that after the financial year, the points will drop somewhat, and then the points will come down to a reachable level of around 75 to 80. Right now, they're around 80 or 85. ICT business analysts, because of the competition and because of the caliber of the students, they usually require higher points. Then the software developers require somewhat less points, around 5 less. And then below them, the cybersecurity, ICT security specialists require even less points. So how do you profile yourself as one? There are ways you can do that, which is by focusing your degree in that particular field. ACS, the Australian Computer Society, will want to see your qualification. They will be the body that will assess you for a skills assessment, and they want to see a higher qualification that is at least 50% ICT, and out of that 50%, you got to have 65% in that field. So if you want to go as a software engineer or as a developer programmer, out of the 50, and then you cut that out of 65, so usually around 7 subjects in a bachelor's degree, 7 to 8 subjects have to be in that area. If you want to profile yourself as a computer networks and systems engineer, then you need to study networking subjects, around 7 to 8 subjects in networking, so you can profile yourself as that occupation. And the same thing with cybersecurity. If you want to profile yourself as an ICT security specialist, then you need to study around 7 to 8 subjects in cybersecurity and protection in order for you to profile yourself as a ICT systems, ICT security specialist. Now, those occupations are also quite competitive, but on the whole, they are in very high demand in Australia, especially in Melbourne. They're quite they're well paid, well remunerated, and they usually stay on the long-term list. For occupations that are in ICT, that are sort of on the back end. Occupations in ICT that are on the front end, like web designer, web developer, graphic designer, these occupations are seen as a little bit less skilled, and therefore they're on the short-term list, and they have less options for PR when it comes down to the point system. Now, apart from that, in terms of what other areas you can study, let's say you already have a bachelor's degree, let's say in law, or you can study something like social work. You can study a 2-year master's in social work, and after that 2-year master's you can apply for your skills assessment, and then you can apply for your graduate visa. Now, during the graduate visa, the 2-year graduate visa you get after you study a master's degree, you can work up the points. This visa is, in a sense, a gift to you, right? You still have to apply for it, you still have to get it, you still have to meet the criteria. But in a way, these 2 years that you're on a graduate visa allows you to work up the points for you to go and be invited through the point system, either on the federal level on the 189 visa, or by state sponsorship on the 190, or even on the regional stream through the 489, which is changing to the 491 in November this year. So just to recap, some of the best areas to study nursing, STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. In the areas of science that I've spoken about biotechnology, chemistry, physics, marine sciences. And just a note on chemistry, let's say you have a degree in pharmacy. Unfortunately, the occupation of industrial pharmacist or hospital pharmacist is on the short-term list. So if you study a bachelor's in pharmacy, you might not be able to get a skills assessment as a chemist, and chemist is on the long-term list. Why? Because VETASES usually considers qualifications in pharmacy that they lack the necessary depth in study of chemistry in order to be considered as chemist, right? So pharmacist is on the short-term list, and so is the occupation of dentist as well. So apart from nursing, ICT, STEM, social work, teaching, and trade courses, then you have accounting, social work, and basically that kind of covers the main areas that you can study to get a positive skills assessment that would allow you to get potentially invited through the point system. Now, on the flip side of the coin, what are some of the courses that you wouldn't want to study, or you would only want to study if you want to kind of buy some time? Well, courses that are very general in nature usually result in not getting PR. So let's say a Bachelor of Communications, Bachelors of Arts, studies in journalism, diplomas in leadership and management, diplomas in project management. They're good diplomas in the sense that these courses can help you kind of build up your profile. Maybe you will learn a few things during those courses, but ultimately for migration purposes, those courses won't lead you to an occupation that is on the long-term list. So you got to be careful when you choose the courses, when you get your advice from your consultants. Just check with them that, is this course going to help me get a skills assessment down the line? Alternatively, if you're conscious that all you need is to get some time while you work up your English, while you sit the NATI exam, or while your partner gets the skills assessment, or while you get the skills assessment, then studying a course as a diploma of business, a diploma of leadership and those things may be a good short-term strategy, may be able to give you a year or two in Australia while you work up the points, or while you build up enough experience to go on a 482 or to go on a 407 training visa, or to accumulate the 3 years you need for that employer to nominate you for PR. So basically, if someone comes to me today and says, what do I study to get PR? I cannot guarantee an outcome, and I cannot guarantee that this course exactly will give you PR, but certain courses are aligned with occupations on the long-term list, and the long-term list is where you want to be. And what occupations are on the long-term list? Nursing, occupations in science, trade, engineering, computers, social work, psychology, teaching, secondary, special needs, early childhood. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what I would advise someone to study. So if you've got any questions, feel free to drop me a line. I'll be reading the comments below after the live and then in the next 24 hours. And if you want to get in touch with me, I work at level 1, 290 Collins Street, Melbourne, and I'll be happy to see you to answer any questions. Thanks very much.